Well, that's the other thing I gave up on was dreams. It's like the only thing I ever got from dreams was disappointment. I mean, what's it? Dream. If player manager wants to be made, this is what I've done really in a way, is I've turned things around creatively. I'd like player manager is its own thing. If player manager wants to be made, it will knock on my door and say make me. Ultimately that's what went wrong. Well, I don't know if that went wrong with Kickoff Revival. Yeah, maybe I tried too hard to make it happen, you know, and so I bugged the thing. I say, look, go on, let me make you again. Go on, let me make you. Go on, go on. And it kind of caved in and let me, because it was just so annoyed with me bugging it all the time. But it wasn't really particularly happy with it. And so that's why it didn't work. So, you know, if player manager wants to be made, it will come knocking on my door. And one day I'll wake up and it will be there and it'll say, please make me. And then I can choose what to do, you know. It's what I do with songs. I've got all these songs I've written. And I used to feel like, oh, I've got to do something with these songs, you know. And it's like, well, no, not really. I mean, they don't pay me. The songs don't pay me. They don't, you know, they bug me. They say, when are you going to record me properly, you know? And so I do it when I feel like it, and I enjoy doing it. But in the end, you know, it's just another thing, isn't it? I don't have a desire to make the songs do anything. They're in charge. You know, when I'm messing around with my guitar and suddenly I get the inspiration for a song. What's that inspiration? The inspiration is another damn fracking song has come knocking on my door asking if I can sort of, you know, make it like real, make it come to life, you know. Yet another one. And I used to be the other way. I used to go, oh God, I haven't written a song in ages, you know. And it was like, yeah, whatever. It's like, that's not the right way to look at it. So player manager, you have to, it has to want to be made, and it doesn't. So, you know, or if it wants me to make it. I no doubt there are plenty of other people who have gone and, you know, it knocked on their door and they, instead of mine, you know, and they went and made a version of Player Manager and they did it without my permission. Well, look, you know, I was like, oh, I blame Player Manager for it. I blame myself. I blame Player Manager. It can go take a running jump. KOR is just a product. KOR is just like anything. It doesn't mean anything. None of it means anything. It's wrong to think that there's any meaning to creative endeavours. Meaning is an illusion. There is just the doing and the satisfaction, and maybe sometimes you get the opportunity to make people's lives better. You know. But I seriously recommend that. It's like just take the approach with creative endeavours that they're a thing, they have minds of their own. I don't. It's a way of handling something that's very difficult to handle otherwise, right? So it's a philosophical way of looking at things, and it's just to say the creative things that we make, it is healthy to consider them to be things in their own right. and that as an artist or whatever it is that you do, you are there to help them to come to fruition, and that they are the boss. So when I go to the studio to work on the music, I take that philosophy. It's not about what I want from the song. What I want is irrelevant. It's what the song wants. And that allows you to sort of throw off the responsibility. You know? It's like, as I say, it's not like they pay me. They're not satisfied with the job I do with them? Fine. Go find someone else. Don't bother me. If you're going to be a song that doesn't like what I do to you, then you can go somewhere else. That's fine. Yes, I don't know. I think it's a product even before it's created. It's just a product in theory. It's like a sculptor. That old thing from Michelangelo, I think, said, is that the statue is already in the block of marble. It's already there. All that the sculptor does is reveal it. I do like that. I know what you mean by that, because you're talking about, the limit of what you can. You're limited only by your own discipline as to what you can do. Creativity comes from what the thing wants to be. Yes. And as I say, it's a way of looking at it. Because the reality is that nobody has a formula for creativity. There's only a philosophy for creativity. And so it really, really helps to just look at the thing you're trying to make and ask, what does it want to be? But the thing is that is true for everything in life. And you shouldn't really try to fight it. You see, that's the problem. If it wants to be a certain thing and then you try to make it to be something else, ask what it wants to be. Otherwise it doesn't work. You end up with something phony or fake or whatever. So your job is not to be limited by discipline. No, it's to have the discipline to ask the thing that you're making what it wants to be. To not sort of impose your will on it. If I ask, what does this song want to be? It's the right question. If I ask, what do I want this song to be? What does that even mean? I don't know what I want. If you try and impose your will, you won't find the magic. That's one of the things that people who are fortunate enough to have success perhaps don't realise, that the success often just creeps up on you. Lots of people are successful, have success, and they never expected it. It just crept up on them. So it meant that because they weren't aware of what was happening, they couldn't impose their own ego on it. If they had tried, if they knew what was happening, they'd probably blow it. So it's a bit of a Zen thing. I don't know if that makes sense. It does to me. That's why I don't look at, even when I'm streaming, I stream because I get the feeling that the stream wants to happen. Okay, it's nagging me. Go on, stream again. Oh, all right. But I don't bother looking at how many people are on I don't check the figures. I don't look at how I'm doing. I was like, what do I care? You know, it's not really like as though I can make a strategic decision to get my viewing figures up. In any case, I'm not doing it for the viewing figures. I mean, seriously. Originally when I started streaming, I did it for a reason. It was also because I wanted to stream development of Kickoff Revival. It seemed like a good thing to do, didn't it? Oh yeah, include people, whatever, blah blah blah. It's all crap. It was the right reason to stream wasn't any of that, because none of that helped in the slightest in the end. Except maybe it helped with my sanity. I don't know. It's better to look at it this way. Kickoff Revival, that thing I was making, wanted me to stream, so I streamed. That feels like I get rid of the responsibility that way. It's not my fault it wanted me to stream. But what I found was I like streaming. I like ranting. It doesn't serve any purpose, but I like doing it. So I do it. You can look at it and say, well, there are certain things you get from this. It's like this thing of talking to the void. People, and you have to watch your words. And maybe I'm going to say something that's going to be foolish. It's actually quite, you can look at it and say it's quite good training in a sense. So, for being able to be spontaneous, to be able to speak freely without getting hung up on your words, just let it come out in a stream. And so then presumably when you're dealing with people in real life, you can just come out with it without any hang up. Make a presentation, do a workshop. So I suppose it's the benefit from it, but in the end, I just do it because I like to do it. And ultimately, that's the only reason to do anything. Let's just cut the whole thing. That's the irony, is if we could just cut out the purposefulness of things, we'd be much more effective. We would enjoy what we do more. And the irony is that whatever we did, if you could measure it as effectiveness, it will be more effective. It's like, so Alan Watts. I know I talk a lot about Alan Watts, but one of the stories kind of related to this. He says that we can't change. People can't change themselves because it's like lifting yourself up by your bootstraps. You cannot do it. If you tug at your bootstraps, you will not lift yourself up. It's impossible. It's like, if you want to improve, then the one doing the improving is the one that needs to be improved. So how can the one who needs to be improved improve themselves? This all sounds very kind of depressing, right? It's like, well, then that means that, we are what we are. No. Because you remember, when you're listening to this, you're listening to someone who's in effect a Zen guru, right? Of his own kind of flavour. You have to go back to the Zen of it. But there's a point where he says something which I find hilarious. He basically says, so what happens then is that if you stop trying to improve yourself, because improving yourself is not actually really possible, right? You stop trying to do that, then you suddenly have a lot of energy left over for doing other things, like writing songs, doing electronics, making a new computer language, and so on. Random, whatever you want to do. There's so many things you could be doing. You have the energy then to devote to these things, and you just go ahead and do it, and don't worry about improving yourself. You just be. And the thing is that when you do that and you relax and and don't get hung up about it anymore. Because in effect, if you're trying to lift yourself up by your bootstraps and you find that you can't, and then you start getting frustrated and then you get obsessed with it, this is not healthy. You're wasting a whole load of energy, right? So you just don't waste the energy. Don't try to improve yourself. And the funny thing is that when you do that, in your relaxed state and your creative state and all these, and just the way that you handle life from that point onwards, right? People will look at you and say, my, haven't you improved? And that is about as zen as you can get. It's brilliant. He was a great man. I wish I had met him. But he died when I was 7. Well, you know, the discipline. There's a talk on TED by this woman whose name I can't remember, who wrote the book Eat, Pray, Love. And it's a brilliant talk. I talk about it sometimes. And basically the job of the discipline, or part of the discipline, the most important part of the discipline, is to show up for work. So if you are doing in creative endeavors, such as you want to, I don't know, make a game for a retro console, or you want to, I don't know, repair retro consoles, or it's all very biased here, or you want to write a song, or you want to learn to play a musical instrument, you know, any of these things, the discipline is required in order to do those things. And the most important piece of discipline is to show up for work. You have to turn up. You have to be there. You have to be ready. You have to be ready for that inspiration to hit. It's certainly like that with music. You need to show up. And what you do, you show up and you don't worry about whether or not you're going to have anything to do. You don't show up and think, right, okay, give me a genius piece of work to get started on. And you will have bad days, and you will have good days, and you'll have terrible days. You'll have days where you feel that this is the worst thing you've ever done. Usually on those days you do your best work. And then there'll be days when you feel that everything is going absolutely brilliantly, and those will probably be the worst productive days. It's funny how it works, certainly in the creative side of things. Yeah. But if you don't show up for work, I say work as in there's no real, work, play, for your hobbies, you've got to show up. What's the difference? If you want to do it, you have to do it. If you want to do it, do it. But a lot of people, they procrastinate, and it's umming and ahhing. People say things like, "I wish I could play guitar," and I tend to have the unpleasant habit of saying, "Well, this is what you need to do. Is go buy yourself a guitar, even a non-expensive one. Play it for 10 minutes every day. Just play it. Doesn't matter what noises you make, what sounds you make. Doesn't matter. Don't worry about what you're doing. And for pity's sake, don't go and get a teacher, or don't. It couldn't work, I suppose, but." Don't go on YouTube videos. Maybe a little bit just to get started, but really, honestly, just pick up the damn thing and make a noise with it for 10 minutes every day. Just do it for 10 minutes every day. You really want to do it? You want to do it? 10 minutes every day. Don't tell me you don't have time for it. Everybody can find 10 minutes in their day, especially people who have the time to wish that they could do something. And you will, in a year of 10 minutes every day, will get somewhere. You just will. There's no magic to it. Yeah? You've got to show up. That's it. Yeah? And the difference between that and a mission is that a mission has my ego in it, you see. I'm not a man with a mission anymore. I'm missing the mission. A man with a mission. A man with a missing mission. It doesn't help to have a mission. I'm going to fix the world. No, you're not. And if you're really serious about it, you can start off by just turning up. Just make yourself available. You know, if something decides that it needs to be fixed, it will come to your door and ask for you to fix it. So get ready for that if you feel the urge. Train yourself so that you are ready for that moment when you can do your thing. Well, right now my thing is checking out this. So we go here to assign an integer. Of course, these things that I talk about, they're not very palatable for a lot of people. I know. I mean, I'm not an idiot. Well, maybe I am, but I do understand that people do find this difficult. I mean, you know, because I found it difficult. What do you mean? And it's like, but it's important to have a mission, to have meaning in your life. What does that mean? What does it mean to have meaning? It's just a word. There are people who find meaning in their lives through all kinds of weird and wonderful ways. You know, collecting stamps, train spotting, don't know, banking, investments. These are all, what's the difference? I mean, in terms of, it's like you can be somebody who collects stamps. Oh, of course they say, but stamps, they can collect stamps, you can make money from stamps. Oh, that's all right. So these people stamp collect because it has a purpose. What about singing? What about making music? Has that got a purpose? Oh, you can make money from that. Yeah, haha. It's like, what about getting up in the morning? What is? You see, that's the problem. If you go and you buy into this thing, when we're all taught this, as I was too. We're all taught this from an early age. We're steered away from pure creativity. We have to do things that have a purpose, and so we're all trained that way. Everything has to have a purpose. Has to have a purpose, and the problem is that eventually you figure out that purpose doesn't really have a meaning. It isn't actually meaningful. The people who are lucky seem to get something out of it, and maybe they are wealthy. I mean, you know, take Jeff Bezos for a moment. I mean, you'd think he'd be the happiest person on the planet. He had everything. It's never enough, is it? And so eventually, when you figure this out, you go, why should I get up in the morning? When you realise it's all tokens. And eventually you realise that the reason for getting up in the morning is to get up in the morning. It doesn't need a purpose. You don't need a reason to have fun. And you can find fun in everything you do. It doesn't. Why do we need purpose? In fact, there is a thing in Zen, it's called purposelessness. But it's not switching off. It's not caring. It's not that at all. It's acknowledging that the reason for getting up in the morning is to get up in the morning. The reason for going to work and having a job is to go to work and have a job. In the same way as the reason for having kids is to have kids. The reason to play a song is to play a song. You know, it's enough. It really is enough. If you can get to that point where it's enough, it's so much better, because then, you know, you don't get hung up anymore. And that is that's what I understand to be pretty much the idea with Zen. I mean, there's a Zen story of a student talking to the Zen master, and he basically said, every day we have to get up, we have to wash ourselves, we have to make our food and eat our food. Every day it's the same thing. How do we get out of this? And the Zen master said, I think it was actually, we have to dress and we have to eat, you know. And the Zen master said, we get up, we dress, we eat. Then the student said, yeah, I don't understand. And the Zen master says, well, if you don't understand, get up, get dressed, eat your breakfast. You know, it's basically it's basically, if you don't understand that, the way to understanding it is to just do it. There is nothing to understand. You just need to do it. And it's very, very difficult to get there. I mean, it took me a long time to see that, and in the end, I had many inklings of this. And this connects with the whole mission thing, as you can see, right? But it was listening to Alan Watts every day. In the 2 years that Karina wasn't here, I was living by myself. I would go to sleep every night with Alan Watts on, and the message started to sink in. And it's actually okay for there not to be a purpose. And yeah. So anyway, I'm going to check the chat there because I keep. Here we go. But I totally get. So I went off on my. I totally get how people find this uncomfortable. So don't believe in what I'm saying. Then it's absolutely fine. Just an opinion. Well, it's not actually impressive at all. It's only, unless you consider shaking off all of the fear that we're programmed to have. You know, we're taught as children to be afraid of making mistakes, and that's still, you know, the problem. You have to get over that when you're performing, right? But it's great when you don't have that hang up anymore. So but it's not that impressive if you come to the thing naturally. You have to remember that there's a lot that goes on in our brains if you trust it. So if I get the feeling to work on a tune, it means I'm ready to do it. So for example, with the humming thing. But it was one take because I sat down and started playing along, and for some reason was able to play along in that. Well, I was in the zone. Let's call it. Say I was in the zone. It was a happy moment. I was in the zone, and then what was to be the point of doing it again? It was what it was. But it's like everything I do on this stream, I do in one take. You play a musical instrument and do a solo. Do it in one take. Sure. Why not? I mean, you know, we live our lives doing everything with one take, usually. I think it's a what happens is that we elevate creative endeavors to sort of put them beyond reach. I don't know, if you notice, like on YouTube videos, there's so many people who are actual, you know, professional YouTubers, and they can't seem to talk for more than about, you know, 10 seconds without a jump cut. So, you know, they're talking like this, and then we, you know, that's one thing, and then you look at this, and so it's like, you know, they must spend a huge amount of time editing. What are they doing that for? Can't you just sort of just talk? I mean, that's what you're doing, isn't it? You're just talking. Can you imagine if we were like that down the pub? It's like having a drink, you know, you're talking and there's just jump cuts all the time. It's like, well, we just are. Just be. It doesn't matter. It's not impressive. It's no more impressive than I managed to walk down the street and catch a bus, and I did it right first time, you know. I mean, unless I forgot my mask, in which case I'd probably have to go and have a second attempt. But, you know, leaving aside major catastrophes, I found that usually the first take has a quality that the other takes that can be more polished just don't have. It might be nice and polished, but it just lacks that something, you know.